Don.
And hi, I'm Cindy. Welcome to Pearls of Liberty, November 17th, 2012, entering into Thanksgiving week and therefore the holiday season. This has been a little quieter week than the week before, but there is just so much, you can just feel the tension almost in the air. People waiting for things and anticipating change. And of course the evil cabal want to delay or prevent change as much as possible, and to do that they are hoping still to begin World War III. And the first thing that we'll mention on that score is that the Hamas leader who was slain during peace talks with Israel. So that peace process was sabotaged.
By guess who? Sorry to say, but Christians have to start seeing Israel the way that it really is. It's not what you think it is, folks. It's not the reincarnation of the redo of the old biblical Israel. This is a counterfeit that we're dealing with here, and these are not good people at the top. They have a lot of useful idiots at the bottom, but a lot of those well-intentioned useful idiots are refusing to go along. There are large groups of, or at least some, I'm not sure how large they are, but at least there are some Israeli soldiers that are refusing to go to Gaza to fight against the Palestinians. So people have consciences worldwide, and when people realize that their countries are being run by sociopaths, they begin to say no, because the sociopaths are always only 1% or so, sometimes even less of the population. And so humanity is awakening.
And what we're being told, what many Christians believe, is poor Israel under attack from these heathens. We have a link to an article that shows photos of the damage done in Israel as compared to the damage done in Gaza. I believe the death total in Israel was something like 5, and the death total in Gaza at this count was 208 people who had been killed. So this beating the drum, we have to protect Israel, it is a cleverly woven web that's meant to trap Christians as if they were unsuspecting flies. And the spider that will come out to devour us is the evil cabal who intend to set up a one-world government.
They want to get you to support your own enslavement. That's what this is all about. This is a deception, pure and simple. And Israel is a very important part of that. And we want to also point out that this attempt to inflame a larger conflict in Israel probably would have been worse and would have gotten more mileage if Romney were president. And we're saying, as Christians, it's a good thing that he's not, because the situation there or in other places could very well lead to World War III. I know another thing that we wanted to mention was how that Obama was basically put in office by people that wanted to avert World War III, knowing that Romney would have accelerated that process. And those people, the White Dragon Society, had a lot to do with the success of Obama's campaign in the final weeks when it was really important, when it was neck and neck. Again, I'm not saying that's a good thing. I in no way support Obama, but I'm very much against World War III. And I'm not in any way saying that Obama himself wants to avert World War III, but politicians always know what side of the bread the bread is buttered on and where their power comes from. And in other words, whenever you give something to a politician, that gains access, and that also indicates vulnerability. So if Obama wants to maintain the power that he's gotten, and it's not all with the United States by any means. It's the international power play that's going on. That means that he has to continue to support the wishes of those who put him in power. And I believe that he is well aware that the White Dragon Society and others that wanted to avert World War III are very much important to his remaining in power.
It was Benjamin Fulford who wrote about that in his blog last week, that Obama had been placed in office because he made a deal with the Dragon family, and that the White Dragon Society was okay with that, provided that Obama make certain guarantees for peace. So if you make a deal with the Dragon family and you don't uphold your end of the bargain, I don't think it goes very well for you. So we'll be watching that. But as Benjamin Fulford often states in his blogs, the Asians who want to see the good things happen want to see the good things happen in the world. And while they care about the American people, their primary concern is stopping the military-industrial complex war machine in the world theater. So Fulford has written many times that Americans are responsible for their own freedom, for what happens in their own country that pertains to the people who live here. So even the White Dragons are pressing the peace issue, we in the States still need to step up to the plate and hit some home runs.
Absolutely. We have to stop this black and white thinking. It's either Democrats good and Republicans bad, or vice versa. It's not that way. There's international and national power plays going on, and people within America definitely have to stand up for liberty. I also wanted to mention a prophecy from Kris Vallotton, who's a prophetic voice out of California, Redding, California, and a guy that we like a lot. And he's very non-religious, and really hears from God in very prophetic ways. And I think this was not necessarily a recent word, but it was recently published, so we'll put a link to it. But it has to do with how God is really blocking the war machines in various places around the world. The figures of the pictorial images that he used are ice over Iran, North Korea, and other hot spots that, if you are into thinking that this Christian God is a God of war, I'm sorry, but you've got the wrong God. That's not who we're talking about. If you read the Old Testament, you'll see lots of times that there is war, but that's always something that had to be done as a last resort because evil was being taken out. And sometimes the only thing to do to come against evil is to put it down forcefully, and that ultimately is self-defense because you're reacting against that evil taking over. That's why we're not pure pacifists. We believe in the right to bear arms, the right to self-defense, and that's what you see with the people in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, it's as plain as day that Christians are to only be there for self-defense. Jesus said, "By a sword," that's self-defense. So I don't believe in any way that we should be endorsing a war machine that justifies itself by false flags that deceive people into thinking we need to go to war against enemies that aren't really even enemies. They're enemies that we've created. And unfortunately, more and more people are seeing this, and a lot of mainline Christians are behind the curve, but we're here saying, wake up, see the world the way that it really is. We also want to talk about the Ron Paul farewell speech, in which he just nailed, and with deep philosophical underpinnings and the knowledge of history, really helped nail down the case for liberty and how important that is to our future as a nation and the future of the world. We highly recommend listening to it.
And Ron Paul did mention some things about secession, and we wanted to highlight the secession activities that have been occurring this week, with many, over 800,000 the last time I looked, people going to whitehouse.gov to sign treaties, to sign petitions stating that their states want to secede from the U.S. corporation. So that's not an immediate remedy. Actually, it's not a lawful remedy, but it is a statement, and it is, I think it's a Liberty Bell ringing that, hey, we want our freedom. We're insisting upon our freedom. So we'll see where all that goes from here.
Right. It's starting to happen. People are beginning to coalesce around ideas about liberty, and some of the Obama people, or many of the Obama people that were just gung-ho about his candidacy, think this is an anti-Obama move and a reaction against Obama. It's not. It's fundamentally about realizing that we don't want to go any further down the road towards collectivism and losing our liberty. The whole Obamacare thing is no doubt a major trigger to that, but it's not by any means the only piece of that whole puzzle that's coming into place to lock us into this enslavement grid that's becoming increasingly obvious to many people. So the internet is an extremely important tool. If you know, obviously if you're listening to this, you're on the internet, but if you have friends and family that are getting their news from mainstream TV, you've got to tell them, listen to this alternative news source, because you're not going to really be tapped into what's really happening in the world unless you get some alternative news sources.
Along with the secession issue are some potential solutions that people are talking about. As we stated, the secession petitions are not a lawful remedy, but some others have been suggested, even by Alex Jones this week. Alex Jones virtually never talks about solutions or potential solutions, and that's been one of the harsh criticisms, and to some extent valid, against Alex, is that he has never supported any movement that is offering solutions. But this week Alex offered some of his own solutions, and we are including the video of that in our notes. And there are some other potential organizations that we've mentioned before, the Union States Project, RUSA, some other groups that have potential to be a remedy, be a solution, be the means by which we have our republic restored. However, Don, in participating in these groups, more than I have actually, has noticed this recurring issue of Christians getting involved and wanting to insist that everyone involved be a Christian, and basically that everyone who is allowed to participate in the U.S. Republic must be a Christian.
I want to back up real briefly and say that what you're saying when you're saying the secession petitions are not a lawful response, what you're saying is that if you're going to succeed, you just do it. There's no need to ask permission and say, hey, can I leave, please? Can I go use the little boy's room? No. You just do it. But these secession petitions are a move in the right direction. And one thing that Ron Paul made very clear in his farewell speech is that secession is as American as apple pie. That's what we're all about. When something gets out of control, we just say, no, we are the source of the power and you're not, and go take your treason where the sun don't shine. So that's all we're saying there. But yeah, I have noticed this trend, and it's not that people are Christians are overtly saying you have to join our group. To join our group, you have to be a Christian. But there's this behind-the-scenes maneuvering that people are not given the floor or given positions of quasi-leadership unless they are Christians that are accepted as such by the other Christians. And there are deep lines of division within California and the Patriot movement over this type of issue. There are false accusations that continue to surface because people people tend to live according to their prejudices, and unless they're really, truly, I think, filled with the Spirit and enlightened, I think there is a lot of religious bigotry that's masquerading as truth, and it's not. So I'll just call that the way that I see it. That Christians absolutely need to be able to work with people that love liberty, that are New Agers or are of atheists or anything of the kind. Thomas Paine was a huge, huge atheist. A lot of the founding fathers were not biblical Christians per se. You could even make a very strong case that the founding fathers were using the biblical Christians and that they themselves were more like New Agers than Christians. I think you make a very strong case there. There's a video I watched, at least parts of not that long ago, that makes that case. So the important thing is that God has built this desire for individual liberty into our very beings, and we can't be clannish about it and saying, we're the real thing, you're not. Yeah, you can form communities of like-minded people once it gets to that stage, but when we're in the stage of beginning to say, this is our position as people of liberty, religion doesn't come into it, and not only overtly but covertly. This admitting or inviting people in only because they're Christians and they think like you. I'm saying that's a bad thing. Real honor, good government is built on honor, and as Danny Silk and others out of Bethel Redding have pointed out really quite clearly, explicitly, honor is based on valuing somebody who is not like you, who has gifts and abilities that are different from yours. You don't want to have this inbred Borg mindset of people that are just thinking all together all the same way. That's not a good thing. It looks like the way to build a solid foundation, but it's anything but. You need to reach out to build a strong foundation with people who are different and whose values for liberty can complement yours. As long as you're trying to use chapter and verse to say, well, this is what God likes and this is what God doesn't like, then I don't think you're going to have a solid government. There's a lot of valuable principles you can glean from Scripture, but if you're going to split hairs over Scripture, then you're just going to end up with fragmentation, and all the different Protestant denominations are just evidence of that fact. So we need to come together as human beings created in the image of God, but allowing people that don't even believe that they are created in the image of God. So it's a funny paradox, but just look at what the Father does. He loves His children, whether they even know He exists, and that we need to treat each other with like-minded love and liberty, and then you'll be able to move in the right direction.
And those who want to keep us enslaved are very aware that one of the best means for doing that is to keep us divided. So to pursue liberty, we must pursue liberty together if we are to be successful and not break off schism here, schism there. We agree on the central point, and that is liberty. And we might find that we need to be somewhat tolerant of other views as we press toward that common goal of liberty. There was, I'm sure you're aware, a large explosion in or near Indianapolis, Indiana, and the man who was killed in the explosion along with his wife was an interesting inventor. It just sounds a little far-fetched to say that it could have been a drone strike, but the actual truth is it could have been a drone strike. We're living in the U.S. in 2012, and some very strange things happen at various times. the man who was killed was a tech man, and it looks as if he was a participant in putting together some very interesting technology. So it's difficult to resist speculating that this may have been some kind of an intentional hit.
Yeah, this is a guy that had put together different technology projects, all that would have been a threat to the energy monopoly system. One of the photos that we saw on Facebook showed the difference between the plasma lights and regular street lights, and these are radio controlled and wireless, and save 70% on the energy costs. But what would that mean? That would mean a replacement of all of those energy light devices that are controlled by the energy monopoly, the cabal. And this guy could simply have been taken out because he is a threat. He's a threat to the system. That's very, very possible. If you see photos of his house, it's completely leveled. Could have been he was doing something that it was explosive in his garage, but I tell you, I can't help but think of the parallels between this situation and the Brown's gas scenario that happened a couple decades ago, and the story about that is told in Chain Reaction with Canal Reeves. We've talked about this before, and there were explosions that were created by the people that wanted to stop these guys because they were threatening the energy monopoly. Really, the primary monopoly on the planet is about energy, and when that gets broken, the power of the cabal is broken for sure. And people like this that threaten that monopoly, they're dangerous to the system, and they could be taken out. Again, it could have been an accident, could have been some experiment, or it could have been a missile or some kind of a drone attack of some kind. There's no way to know at this point. I think maybe some people do know, but and I believe we'll eventually find out. But at this point in time, we can't be sure.
And there are a lot of potential energy solutions on the horizon that can amply, more than amply, replace the oil monopoly. And sometimes I think about the similarities between in school learning about how people had fueled their homes with whale oil, used it for lighting and so forth, and how barbaric that was. And I believe that sometime in the near future we will be looking back on the days that petroleum-based products were used and saying that was absolutely barbaric. How could people ever have done that? So hopefully those days are coming soon. It is Thanksgiving week, and we hope that you have much to be thankful for. And for those people who live on the East Coast who were impacted by Sandy, still in a FEMA camp, other adversities, we're praying for you, we're sorry for you. We do hope that we will soon have even more to be thankful for. A free republic, a restored republic. But for the time being, I think that we're thankful just for the movement with the petitions, and another means through which the American people have been expressing their desire for liberty is the nullification movement.
I think it's true what I just saw on a photo of Ron Paul saying, hey, our team is just beginning, and that's really true. The coalescing of the liberty movement is just now getting off the ground. That's something to really be thankful for, because people are beginning to say, hey, this is the beginning of the Second American Revolution or restoration of the Republic. We can talk about whatever word we wish to use. Again, it's not that we're trying to come against something. We're trying to say, hey, you stole our federal government. We want the real thing back. We want our government back. The plan is to move away, state secession, from that government, not recognizing it and then reinstituting it. And that is not going to be a quick thing. It'll take at least a couple of years to even put the documents together, probably, to redo Declaration of Independence, etc., etc. But the ball is rolling. Things are being put into place. People are positioning themselves and movements are forming with greater speed and intensity. And again, we want to emphasize this is not about violence. This is not about war in the streets. This is a philosophical revolution. This is a revolution. Think about how the humans do government, and this American experiment has gotten way off track. We've got to bring it back on track and go back to some of those simple ideas. Yes, the world is more complex, but that doesn't mean that we need to be living like slaves. So I want to wish you the best this holiday season, and again remind you that you need to see the world the way that it really is. See yourself in it, walk your walk. You are the one that you've been waiting for.
Thanks for watching, and find some non-GMO stuffing and enjoy your turkey. Or your tofurkey if you're a vegetarian.
Hear, hear.